What this book contains is all about consciousness. Okay, that's a huge thing by itself, but it contains multitudes. It contains consciousness, spirituality, different dimensions of reality, hypnotherapy, how to contemplate all of this that comes up in the book, and these are not the only concepts, and then to assimilate it to help to shift your perspective on life and how to live it.
I've been really struggling with this debilitating pain in my knees for 3 years, in which no doctor, no physiotherapist, no MRI, no X-ray could figure out what is causing it. I couldn't figure out what the cure for it was. And going through this process of hypnotherapy, getting into areas which were completely not connected with physical relief, gave me physical relief.
I feel that this is going to be an important voice that adds to what we already talk about and what we muse about within ourselves or with friends.
Hello. How you doing today?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good as well. What are we talking about today, Sims?
Well, I thought we would talk about your book because I have been wanting to talk about it for ages and I can't hold my excitement back anymore. So I'm just going to insist that we do that.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do that.
Okay, that was easy.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So your book is called Out of the Block, a
Yes.
practical guide to harnessing the power of the hidden mechanics of existence.
Right.
Yeah.
An ambitious title.
And this is what it looks like for our
Yes.
viewers. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, I would have convinced our viewers to get their hands on a copy because we have a debate to settle, you and I. Because when
Do
I
we?
told you, yes, when I
Okay.
told you that this was the best book that I have read in the past few years, and I read a lot, you were like, "Oh, Sims, you're my friend," and that, no wonder you would say that, and I said, "No, no, I do love you, and you are my friend, but this is not that kind of encouragement. This is very, very true, very real, and I have been, of course, talking about it with my friends and passing it on to them and getting them to buy it. But hopefully, this episode, once people watch this and then they get your book and they read it, if it appeals to them, everything that we're going to talk about, then they can come to the comments and they can tell us that I'm right, basically. Yeah, that's the plan.
That's
It's a long-term plan.
right, right. Well, like I've told you, I, I feel like as a friend, you're only going to be extremely encouraging and extremely supportive. And a lot of these things that are in the book, we've talked about at length many, many times over so many years. That it was inevitable that you were going to like the book. Plus, there's a lot of mention of you in the book. So I feel like there might be a bit of a bias towards the book in that sense as well. Maybe, maybe.
A little bit, but I do know that a lot of people like us talk about basically what this book contains is all about consciousness. Okay, that's a huge thing by itself, but it contains multitudes. It contains consciousness, spirituality, different dimensions of reality, hypnotherapy, how to contemplate all of this that comes up in the book, and these are not the only concepts, and then to assimilate it to help to shift your perspective on life and how to live it. So it is not just contemplations, it's not just my friends' opinions, which, yes, I mean, that's all we're all going to have through the ages. We've all just been talking about what we think consciousness is and what we think life is and what is reality and is it real or not. But really, I feel that this is going to be an important voice that adds to what we already talk about and what we muse about within ourselves or with friends. So yeah, I'm just blown over when I was reading this book, and again, not because you're my friend, but because it is so powerful that I had to stop almost after every paragraph or two and then just like, like really soak it in, think about it a little bit and say, yes, yes, thank you. Okay. And I was so excited. And that's, because of all the content and the screens and so much, taking up our time and attention. This was a book that I was so excited to keep reading. And it's deceptively like, it looks small. It should be this thick if, if it's because of what it contains, but you've, distilled things so well that it's an easy read, and you have your story in it as well, and you have some mention of our work that we did together as well, and the concepts that are the bigger questions, the bigger explanations from your perspective. So I, for one, am very grateful for you writing this book, but I want to ask you really, what is the book about for you from your perspective?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that. That's an amazing testimonial for the book. That's amazing. Um, we'll come back to your question in a second. You'll have to probably remind me of the question because I do want to talk a little bit about what led me to write this book.
Yes, that
I've
was
been
my next question. So that's cool. That's perfect.
okay, perfect. I've been contemplating and thinking about these things most of my life. And spend a little bit too much time sometimes on thinking about these kinds of things rather than focusing on the things that you need to do in life just to live it. Um, and I picked up bits and pieces of the information that was interesting to me with many conversations with many friends across decades. And none of it really came together. Like I was always fascinated by this stuff. We've spoken about it. I've spoken about it with other friends that are also interested in these sorts of things, but none of it really came together as an entire concept. So putting all of this stuff down into one place was unexpected because it came so suddenly. And somehow it has satisfied me of all of the questions that I was seeking. Now, a caveat to that is that I haven't got a doctorate in philosophy, or I'm not a scientist. I'm not a book writer. Actually, it
Now you
was
are.
apparently it wasn't something that I ever thought I was going to do, is to write a book. In fact, even when I started writing this book, I didn't think that it was going to be a book. I just thought I was collecting my thoughts together that was suddenly coming into my head um, in a torrent, so that I could leave something for my daughter to read one day and understand a little bit more about her dad when she's old enough to start really contemplating life at a deeper level than what people tend to typically do.
Wow.
Um, So the fact that you're giving all of this praise to this collection of thoughts and epiphanies that I've had is amazing to me. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, no,
Um,
I just want to add here that that torrent of thoughts that started, I think I was one of the early recipients of that.
yeah,
You had
it's,
sent me like a whole long thing, right? And I don't want to talk about what it was because I know you will in a bit. But I I read it and I was like, whoa. And you had prefaced that by saying, I don't know what to do with this, so I have to put it here. I was like,
yeah,
I felt
exactly.
really honored that you shared that with me. And I had
Of
no idea at
course,
that point that it was going to turn into a book. But what I felt was
I didn't
like
either.
Yeah, what I felt was like all of these ideas had been accumulating, like, seeds
Mm,
just planted over time. And they just got to that threshold where they had to sprout, where like something had to be birthed. And
right.
I felt such a power, like a force of nature from you at that point where you were just like obsessed and compelled. Tell us a little about that when that started.
Yeah, so this was last year. This was right before our epic road trip was going to take place, and I was finishing up work and the stuff that needed to be taken care of before I go on vacation, and uh, preparing for the trip itself and all of that. And then suddenly, all of these thoughts just started pouring into my head um, in a most unusual way. Like you can have a lot of thoughts and kind of put them aside and think about stuff later, or all of that kind of thing. But this time it just felt different. It was unavoidable. I couldn't take my attention away from it. And while we are preparing for our trip, um, I just had this nagging thing, just, write this down, write this down, write this down.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where it was almost annoying that, okay, why are these thoughts not leaving my head? I guess the only way to have that happen is for me to write it down. So I started pouring all of this stuff into literally my phone, and putting these thoughts together, and then sending them to you and saying that this stuff is coming into my head, and I don't know what to do with it. But I'm just gonna share it with you because it feels like it's something that you'd be interested in reading as well. Um, did that during the trip as well, when we were not on the road and kind of relaxing, was doing this at the airport, uh,
Wow.
coming home as soon as work would end, instead of relaxing and going and doing something which was a little bit more fun. I had to just keep writing this, and there were times where I over the course of a few months while I was writing this stuff, when I thought, okay, no, I need to go and have some fun. I need to go and do something else. And I couldn't. I was literally waking up in the middle of the night, which is unheard of for me, because when I sleep, I'm gone. I don't wake up until it's time to wake up. And no noises, no nothing wakes me up. I was literally waking up in the middle of the night with thoughts in my head, not dreams, thoughts in my head that I was like, I have to write this down right now in case I forget it by the morning. So I was doing that. So it was a crazy experience.
So
Um,
it's like it's as if you were channeling, right? Like from you, I'm not saying from another source or whatever, or maybe the collective consciousness connecting with where you had gotten with that threshold being filled up, but it feels like you were channeling, you know, like just things coming and flowing and they have to get out. You can't hold it in. It's too much. It's too big. It's yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's the first time I've ever felt like that about thoughts in my head. And if that's what channeling feels like, then I guess then that's what it was. But it was definitely a compulsion. It was not something I could control. It was something that just had to be delivered. It was something that had to take place in physical form, that had previously just been, thoughts in my mind. So yeah, if that's what channeling feels like, then I guess that's what it was. Because also some of these thoughts that were coming into my head were not things that I had heard before or read before or thought before.
Right.
Maybe they were in my subconscious. I really don't know. Maybe it was something that I came across before and I'd forgotten about it or whatever. But some of these things that were happening at that time when this book was getting downloaded from my
Yes,
brain onto paper,
exactly, exactly.
seemed
And
like new thoughts.
yeah, yeah, no, that is, a different way of channeling, like just saying,
Right.
the same thing really. But I'm feeling like we haven't yet told our viewers what happens in the book. What is it about?
Right,
And we're
right.
just building up a lot of curiosity, which is amazing. I love that. But yeah, I'm ready to hear about what you think the book is about for you and what you're expecting others to take from it, perhaps.
Yeah, so the book is about the nature of our existence at the fundamental level of reality. It takes the reader through a logical process that helps them understand the essence of what our existence is made of and how to explain some of the most inexplicable things about our universe and our lives. It tries to reconcile things like science and spirituality, that the two avenues separated from each other, but essentially are trying to understand the same thing and can benefit from being more open to each other, essentially. It takes the reader through my personal journey and talks about some crazy experiences I've had that have led me to believe what I believe now, and how the reader can use some of the lessons I've learned through my experiences to make their own lives better. Um, I guess ultimately what I want people to take away from it is that there are many inexplicable things that happen in their lives and in this world, and some of them are wonderful, and some are absolutely horrible, as we know. And hopefully, this book will help people to get a different perspective on what all of this is, and help them to live a better life that they feel that they're more in control of.
That in itself, like, is so powerful, right? It's such a big question. It's such a big concept that we all, at one time or the other in life, we think about that, we contemplate it, we get irritated with not finding the answers that satisfy us. So if
Mm,
that is one of the things, and I do believe it is only one of the things that people will get out of it, at least an option, a perspective, that is huge. That will be so liberating for so many of us, right? So I'm so glad that you did decide to publish it and not just leave it, for a few lucky ones of us. So no, I'm so happy that you did that. Apart from that, what really interested me a lot and kind of drew me into the book was how you described the different levels of consciousness,
mhm,
the 1D, 2D, 3D. And we know there's, a lot of conversations right now about that we are shifting from the 3D world to the 5D. And that's what ascension is about. And that's what's happening as we evolve. And so I feel that that is a very important component of your book as well, how it lays that out in a language that is very easy to understand. Like, such big concepts are not always easy to explain. That's what I loved about your book. One
mhm,
of the many things is that everything that, like I said, is stop and think and soak it up and process it, but it's written so simply that that's why you have to stop, and say, what? What did I just read? Oh my God, that like clarifies that thing that has been on my mind, or in that, I'm speaking in this way so that I don't give away a lot, because it's so amazing to read it as it is meant to be. But yeah, there were so many things. So let's start with the levels of consciousness, whatever you want to say about it without, yeah.
yeah, so I think that the easiest way to explain it is like I've done in my book is to provide an analogy. And the analogy is, if you're a two-dimensional creature living on a flat surface, like a sheet of paper, you can only see in two directions, either to the left or the right of you, or in front or behind of you. There's no concept of up and down. And this is a
Right.
concept that has been talked about a lot. You'll find a lot of YouTube videos on it, of this 2D circle that's living on a sheet of paper. and they're only able to perceive what's in front of them, behind them, and to either side of them. So if they come across a creature that actually lives in 3 dimensions, above them or below them, and they come into contact with this 2D creature, initially for the 2D creature, it will seem like that voice is coming out of nowhere, because that 3D creature is in a plane that's above the sheet. And for the 2D creature, there's no such thing as above or below. There's only what's around them.
Right.
And I think similarly, human beings live in this 3D world, and the fourth dimension being that of time. But there is a lot of thought, a lot of scientists, a lot of philosophers, religious people talk about this idea that there is something beyond this world that is 3 dimensional or 4 dimensional, and beyond that. And as our understanding of our world gets better, we are beginning to prove that there are additional dimensions beyond the ones that we perceive with our human senses. And I think
Right.
that's where this idea comes from, is once we leave this world, we will be free of the constraints of our 3 dimensional or 4 dimensional bodies, and be able to see everything that we couldn't see before. Just like a 2 dimensional creature might not be able to see beyond the line that's in front of them on the sheet of paper, but a 3 dimensional being can see beyond that line because it has a different perspective. That's the same thing that is going to happen to us when we leave this world.
Right. Okay. Wow. Hi, everyone. We just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for being here with us at the Epiphany Dialogues, where curiosity meets consciousness. If you're enjoying this episode, please hit the like button, follow, subscribe, and share with like-minded people.
And you're also welcome to join our conversation. If you have an epiphany to share, please leave us a comment or email us. Details are in the description below. And with that, back to the episode.
What that makes me think about, like when we were just talking about earlier about you channeling like this information coming together, although you went through linear time collecting all of these thoughts, but it's almost as if it could also be a different dimensional creature saying something to you and you hearing it, but you know what I mean? Like, do you think sometimes our epiphanies are, these amazing ideas come from other dimensions?
Yeah, I do. I think that everything that has ever existed, does exist, and will ever exist all exists at the same time. It's called the block universe theory, and the idea that everything that could have ever happened has already happened. Everything that can ever happen has already happened. Everything that is happening or could have happened in this particular moment already exists. And that's why, there are a lot of people that have been able to predict the future. Supposedly, a lot of famous instances in history, people like Nostradamus and people like Baba Vanga, I think,
Yep.
famous Bulgarian person who could
Mystic.
see the future, and a lot of people relied on her predictions as well. And I've seen, evidence of this in my own life as well, because of certain experiences that I've had that I've also written about in the book, that they just seem really unlike coincidences. This is like, okay, this is a very specific thing that I think is going to happen, and then it happens like a year later, and it just doesn't seem like it's a coincidence at that point.
Right.
So I think that not only does everything that potentially could exist at the same time, things like music, art of any kind, thoughts, inspirations, they all exist outside of what we are perceiving. And from time to time, if we put ourselves in a state where we can access that realm, that dimension, we can pull information from there. So there are certain people that are already kind of gifted in this way, musicians, artists who get this inspiration to come up with the most amazing music or the most amazing lyrics or the most amazing art, philosophers, writers, all of these kinds of things. It's not just a mechanical process that's taking place in your brain. They're pulling some inspiration from somewhere, and that somewhere is outside of these, four dimensions that we live in. That it exists already somewhere, and they're just tapping into it.
Right. So what this means to me, and it's going to mean different things to different people, and that's what's so beautiful
Sure.
about it, is that if we just allow ourselves to be a little more expansive and open
Mm-hmm.
to more than what we know or what we see and what is, like tangible, that we are then more, we're creating a conducive pathway for more to be revealed to us or
For
shown
sure.
to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's happened across history a little bit is science has separated itself from spirituality. I think at the time when people were getting burnt at the stake for witchcraft, and then obviously there was a huge movement within religions, and all these kinds of things where people were kind of separating out into different directions based on their beliefs. Science separated itself out and said that only that which is provable is something that is real, and nothing else is. But the problem with that type of thought, in my opinion, is you're limiting yourself to only those things that you understand, that you can measure, that you can repeat, etc. And you're completely discarding everything else that could potentially also be true. And I understand why they need to do that, and they need to focus on those particular things that they can measure and they can prove and they
Yes.
can repeat. And that's what
Yes.
science is. But if you, as a scientist, start believing that that's the only thing that there is, then you're really doing yourself and science a disservice, because you're potentially not thinking into directions that could be beneficial to you as a human being, as a scientist, and to society.
Absolutely. Yes. Completely agree with you on that. A lot to think about, but I'm not done with my questions yet. Um, I wanted to ask you, how did hypnotherapy play a part? Because it features in your book. And I just wanted to ask about your experience of that just a little bit.
Yeah, so I always thought that hypnotherapy, hypnosis was all just some scam, some entertainment on TV, and it was all just BS, because how could any of this stuff be real, the way people act, and delving into past lives and stuff like that. But I was always very interested in it, and that's why I came to you, because I heard from a close friend of mine that there's this person that he knows that has been a friend of his from college days, and she's a hypnotherapist. So for me, it was like, okay, here's a real person that is, and I'm getting my friend's opinion that she's a real person. She's not a scam artist or anything like that. And I want to go and understand more about what hypnosis is, because unless I experience it myself, I'm not going to believe that any of the stuff is real.
It's true. It is a
And
very experiential thing, to be honest.
for
That's
sure,
how it goes. Yeah.
yeah. And then when I came to you and I told you that, hey, I have no real issues that I'm dealing with, I thought.
So I thought.
So I thought. And I just want to know what all this hypnosis stuff is about, what this past life regression stuff is about. I want to experience all of that for myself, for me to actually believe that there's something beyond what I see around me at that time. And when I went through that process with you, of course, it unlocked a whole can of worms, which was,
Good worms, cute worms.
I don't know if they were good, cute worms. I think that they definitely needed to be come out of the can, and the can needed to be washed out, and all of that
Fair,
stuff.
fair.
Um, a lot of stuff that I didn't realize was really affecting my life so much came out during that process. Not to mention the actual physical healing that happened. I'd been really struggling with this debilitating pain in my knees for 3 years, which no doctor, no physiotherapist, no MRI, no X-ray could figure out what is causing it, and couldn't figure out what the cure for it was. And going through this process of hypnotherapy, getting into areas which were completely not connected with physical relief, gave me physical relief. Not only gave me physical relief after 3 years of excruciating pain, I have stayed away from that for however long, it was ago. It's 15 years or something like that we
Yeah,
did those sessions. So the physical healing that came from all of that was eye-opening. It was absolutely amazing. And again, for people that haven't gone through that and experienced that sort of healing through hypnotherapy and not traditional medicine, it's very difficult to believe.
yeah.
But if you go through it yourself, you will understand that, hey, I had this pain for 3 years. Nobody could do anything about it. Nobody could even understand what it is. And now it's gone.
So
You
it's
know?
like in the 3D world, you've tried everything and,
Right.
whatever but then
Mm-hmm.
it's from a different dimension that you're able to, heal it.
Yeah, and exactly right. From a different dimension, from a different angle, from an angle that doesn't exist in the traditional methods that we tend to use on this planet. But there are many healers in this world. There are many stories of healing in this world. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people exploiting this sort of thing as well to give people hope without actually doing something. But the stuff exists; it's real. I now have proof of that in myself, so I completely believe it. But the other thing that was really interesting that happened during those sessions, and after removing some of those blocks that were there in my energy, in my life, in my subconscious, whatever you want to call it, is it opened up, I think, a doorway. It opened up a path to keep receiving new experiences which were unexplainable in this 3D, 4D world. And one of those, of course, was the most mind blowing one for me. No pun intended, because you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this experience of being able to see something real, something physical that was occurring in someone else's body, that I had absolutely no way of guessing that this is something that was actually happening inside of them, and being able to tell them that very innocently. In fact, I didn't even tell them that. I just kind of said it as part of the class that I was in, and they confirmed that this is what was happening to them. And I think that getting into those hypnotic, low frequency brain states opens up your abilities to do things and sense things and see things and understand things like nothing else does. So yeah, hypnotherapy was one of the ways in which one can get into that particular state, and that's why, since I understood all of those things from you, and actually going to your course as well, to understand how to get into the state, how to help other people to get into the state. Those are the things that I shared in this book
Yeah.
about one of the ways in which you can tap into this ability.
Yes, and dare I say, without substance abuse,
Yeah,
because a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of my
exactly.
clients who come to me who have, been on certain substances, and
Mm,
then they experience hypnotherapy, and they're like, "Oh my God, I did not know that state was achievable without
mm,
a certain thing," And I'm just like, yeah, it's great to be in a place like this where substances are not legally obtainable and quite
mm.
controlled, to be able to provide that as well. If you're looking, it's quite interesting. But yeah, no, the way that you have described in your book the practice of how to connect with that state and what to use it for, and it's really beautiful. I loved how you described it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to substances specifically, I think the difference between that and hypnotherapy or meditation or any of these tools that you can use to get into a low frequency brainwave state is that using substances kind of takes off all control, and you are all over the place, and you cannot really control what you do in that state, how you think, what your actions will be. Whereas with hypnotherapy, with meditation, with a number of different similar modalities of how to get yourself into this really relaxed state where you're disconnecting almost from this 3D world, and you're allowing your spirit, your essence, to connect to higher dimensions, to connect to higher levels of existence, and be able to pull from that, but in a very controlled manner.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot more intentional, and
Yeah.
it's not hit or miss. That the way that it happens with some other means. So yeah, no, it's one of those things that you can really navigate most of the time with the help of others, but in the way that you've described it, for the purpose that you've described it in your book, you can practice it yourself as well, take other people through it as well. So I appreciate you adding that into the book. What I wanted to ask you next was, how has writing the book affected you? What has it shifted? What has it changed within yourself, if anything at all? I'm sure that there is things to talk about.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is my attitude towards life has changed, because I now know uh, that everything happens for a reason, and that there is a version of myself, my higher self, that is guiding me through this life, and how to play this life, and how to experience this life. And previously, where I might have been extremely frustrated or depressed or sad or whatever about a specific situation, I now know that everything is going according to my plan. I myself, right now in this moment, might not know what that plan is, but my future self actually does.
Right.
And my future self is able to help my current self, just like my current self was able to help my younger self navigate and get through some of the tough things that we are going through as a collective human person,
Yes.
across different parts of time or different points of time, and that everything that is happening right now is leading me in a direction that is going to be according to my wishes overall.
Right. Yeah. So I feel what I'm hearing is, or what I'm taking away from that is that there's always a future self kind of calling and, giving us signs, or, instincts and gut feelings and so many things, calling us towards our higher, let's say, potential,
Mm-hmm.
choosing that higher, timeline, making those decisions, taking those leaps, whatever it might be. But a lot of times we don't trust it, we don't believe it, we don't listen to it, we get caught up in our head and with all the whys and your hows and all of that. But as soon as we start just opening ourselves up, the voice will always be there. It will never go away. It just becomes clearer, and it almost feels like easier to follow it, to trust it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that part of what I wrote in the book, which was part of my experience as well, going through this whole process, was until you deal with some of the noise that's there in your life, until you deal with some of the things that keep taking your attention away from being present, and being able to understand that whatever has happened in the past has happened and you're here now, and none of what has happened in the past necessarily affects your future, that you have some agency, you have some ability to control what happens going forward. Until you get rid of some of that noise, until you get rid of some of those weights that are pulling you down, until you deal with all of that, it's very difficult to understand that everything is going to be all right. It's very difficult to listen to your higher self, your inner voice, whatever you want to call it. It's like you go through your life dealing with external things in your daily routines, and you don't realize that there's a heart inside of you that's beating. But as soon as you pay attention to your heart, you kind of stop listening to whatever's around you, and you just think for a second and listen. You can actually feel your heartbeat. You can actually hear your heartbeat inside your ears and
Yeah.
your blood pumping. It's there all the time, but you're just not focused on it throughout your day. Sometimes you probably go through days, weeks, months without ever thinking about your
Yeah.
heart beating inside of you. And I
So
feel like
true.
it's the same sort of thing, is that you have this higher self of yours that exists, that is always there, but you're just not listening to it because you're so focused on everything that's happening around you. You're so distracted by it, things that have happened in your past. You need to kind of deal with all of those things and quieten that noise down to be able to hear something different.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I do tell my clients that it's always better to bring that noise down from your own initiative, like, from an empowered place, like meditation or whatever you want to do to actually reduce that noise so you can hear
Mm,
better rather than not doing it yourself, and then life kind of has to step in and like crash something so that there is
right,
complete silence and you go
right.
inwards and you question and then you come out strong. And we've kind of been brought up with that belief of no pain no gain and I will rise like a phoenix. And
Mm,
it's been created like such an ideal thing to go through, like hardships in order to find yourself, that I am, of course, with my work trying to you know put a stop to that. Like, let's evolve with that as well. We don't have to go through pain to come out as our higher self. We can do it with intention, we can do it with attention, we can we can work on it from an empowered place rather than losing all our power and then gaining it, because then you need more energy to enjoy the next level that comes up.
yeah, and I think what it is you have to balance playing the game of life and understanding what life is, and connecting to yourself really, to understand what are the things that will actually fulfill you in this life, what will actually make this meaning of life to you the best that it can be, as you're living it.
That is a great way to kind of sum up what Out of the Block, your book, talks about, or leads us to look at and consider and contemplate and see how we can kind of apply it in our own lives. Is there anything else you want to add? Apart from where can our viewers get their hands on the book? Are you going to put a link in the comments or the description of this episode?
Yeah, I'll definitely put a link in the comments or in the description of the episode of where people can get it. It's basically available on Amazon. And the I think what I really want to try to get across to people is if this book helps people, even if it changes something small in their life and makes it positive, whether they don't completely agree with my ideas or my inspiration or whatever you want to call it, wherever this book came from in the end, in the end, about what life is. But at least if you can use some of the tools that were mentioned in here to improve some part of your experience on this earth, then that would be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I agree that you don't necessarily have to own the perspectives, but it does help to, uh, you know, see those perspectives. It helps to, bring them to your consciousness so that then that can unlock whatever your truth is and
Exactly.
whatever your, that's what it does for me. So there's no, question of right or wrong. Is this the ultimate answer to anything? But it is definitely a big step in questioning and to coming to certain conclusions and understandings that are very satisfying as far as I'm concerned.
They have been very satisfying to me. People will pull you in the direction of science. People will pull you in the direction of religion. People will pull you in the direction of a lot of different things. And it helps to understand different perspectives and see different things to form your own perspective and live a life that feels authentic to you and live a life that you can find meaning in. So mine is not a religious book. I don't think I'm a religious person, although I believe that there is an ultimate creator of everything. Mine is definitely not a scientific book because I'm not a scientist. I cannot prove any of these things that I have written other than to provide some of the thought experiments that, in my mind at least, helps me prove that this experience that we're having right now as human beings is not everything. It's not. It's not real in the grand sense of the word. That there is an existence that's outside of what we're experiencing right now, and my thought process through this book and some of the steps that I've taken to explain why I think those things will hopefully help open up somebody else's mind as well.
They absolutely will. I have no doubt about that. Thank you once again for writing it, and thank you for talking about it. And I'm hopeful that a lot of people will get a lot of, if not answers, then definitely direction towards more clarity about life and themselves and consciousness and everything that you mentioned that it is not, or you are not in terms of, religious or scientific, but the book covers a lot of these concepts in a manner that is really inviting for us to ponder over. So I love that. Thank you.
Thank you for talking about my book, and hopefully, if people do end up reading it at some point, I would love to hear their thoughts and maybe even talk about those things with them at some point, because I mean those are the things that you and I love to do, right, Zims, to talk about
Yes.
what all of this stuff is. So if people read the book and they come up with a different perspective, or they come up with some different ideas or things that are not mentioned in there or are completely contrary to what I've written, I would love to talk to them about it.
Yes, we are going to be having guests very soon in the coming episodes. So, yes, definitely get in touch if you want to discuss either what we have talked about today or an epiphany that is important to you and that you would like to share with us.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Look after
You too.
yourself, or we'll see each other in the next episode of the Epiphany Dialogues. Have a good
Yes.
one, Zims.
Thanks. Take care.